Hi, we're here today in the Bayview with Vivian of Poor Magazine, and Vivian was just telling me about her experiences in her living situation. I was wondering if you could elaborate.
Well, between the years of 2000 and 2006, I lived in public housing with the Oakland Housing Authority. It was 6-unit projects next to Idris Stelley Park on 85th between Plymouth and Birch. We moved there after being homeless in Oakland for 4 years during the .com boom because nobody wanted to rent to anybody with Section 8 during that time because they could get 4 times the amount of rent during that time when the tech industry was coming into the Bay Area. So 2 different times I had received Section 8 vouchers and they both expired because nobody would rent to us because they could get a lot more money for tenants, private tenants, market rate housing. So, and on top of that, you had to make 3 times the amount of money earned than the rent. And so the rents were high, so you had to make a hell of a whole lot of money to qualify for that housing. So me at my $10 an hour job and on and off welfare because of job insecurity, I was not qualified 99.9% of the time to get any kind of housing because of that reason of the 3 times the amount on the income from the rent. So I ended up working with a social worker at a clinic that I used to go to for my babies, who put me on a waiting list at Oakland Housing Authority, and they got me into an apartment in East Oakland over there on 85th, which we lived in, and in that 5.5 year timeline, we dealt with a lot of vicious activity out there. It's really sad because everybody's poor and they're struggling and they got mental illness and addiction illness, and people are hurting on one another out there because we're kind of corralled and isolated away from the main city because we're way on the outskirts. There's no stores around there, no post office. There's only liquor stores. We had 6 liquor stores within the proximity of where we lived. I'd say in the 6-month proximity there were 6 liquor stores, and I basically, a lot of times my car wasn't working and I'd be on foot with my kids, the stroller, trying to find meat and produce and stuff. And so housing even got worse than that. A lot of really bad stuff happened. At one point my roommate was pulling into his driveway next door by the park, and there's a lot of drug dealers in the park all the time, and we kind of thought that was normal, because I knew them all by name. They knew me. Half the time I'd be in my kitchen cooking and they could see me. I could see my kids out the window and they'd be like kind of watching over my kids so they could play on the play structure. But you were always in imminent danger because there was always a time that maybe somebody might come by and start popping off caps or whatever. So like on one incident, my neighbor was a Latino guy working really hard. He was pulling into his driveway after work, and one of the drug dealer's friends that came through the area, wasn't from the area, rear-ended him. They got in an argument, and like 6 guys got out. One of them shot my neighbor through his body, and he basically was dying right there next to the park on the gate. I grabbed the t-shirt, held his wounds, and the ambulance came, and he barely made it. The ambulance guy said, well, he only made it because you held pressure to his wounds. And, I felt very grateful and thankful for having the ability to do that. However, we had other stuff, like people would always park in our housing parking lot thinking it belonged to the park, not realizing that it was our parking, and sometimes they'd shoot people. One person died in our driveway, got shot randomly, and he died. Another guy had a big gun and pointed it at my children's father's back when he was alive, and shot it in the air. He was really high on something. There was a couple other incidents where people, came through and just sprayed the front eaves of our house. They weren't going for anyone in particular. They may have been trying to shoot at the drug dealers in the park, but the bullets would spray against the building where we lived because we were right adjacent to the park. So when that would happen, all the time when I'd hear the bullets close by, I'd say to my kids, hit the floor. And my kids were toddlers, 2 of them. They knew to do that. We always had to hit the floor watching TV. And gunfire was daily, helicopters daily, all of that. And it's sad because the people that are killing one another and hurting each other out there, they're only perpetuating a system that oppresses them and holds them down to even get bigger and larger and become bigger police state, so that cops think it's okay to shoot human beings even when they're dealing with mental illness, or shoot human beings at all, whether armed or not. They have no right to take anyone's life. And so, you know, you got that kind of situation, and you got situation of folks hurting on one another. So, you know, that's the dynamic of what a lot of people live with in public housing out in certain neighborhoods. And, you know, to be honest with you, you know, I don't see no healing programs. I don't really see anybody reaching out to the young communities out there, young and old alike, to allow them the ability to heal from whatever it is they're dealing with that makes them do what they do. And then a lot of people like myself and my kids, we get caught in the crossfire. So after 5.5 years of that, I finally got some public housing in Berkeley, and I moved to Berkeley, where it was much quieter. I mean, we had a lot of domestic violence there going on around us, but it was quieter, less gunshots, almost none at all. Now I've moved back to West Oakland because Berkeley was too gentrified and too yuppie, and the people are very like classist. They're somewhat racist, but they're very passive aggressive about it. And I moved back to West Oakland because that's my comfortable community, because people out there are much more friendlier, much more sharing. Stuff happens in West Oakland too, but not the way it did in East Oakland. And the thing is that, you know, building communities and healing communities is where it really needs to happen, and showing folks that there's different ways to deal with conflict and anger than popping each other off, because that just takes it nowhere, but enlarges a system that's already in place to pull us down. So for me, being involved in my communities and being with Poor Magazine, and here with Mesha today celebrating her son Idris Stelley's birthday, his 36th birthday, in commemoration of his life and thoughts and heart and love after he was wrongfully murdered by the pigs in San Francisco, because he had mental health issues that were going uncared for, you know, unnoticed, unrecognized, that the police departments are not trained adequately to deal with folks with mental illness. I work serving mental illness folks in my community, helping them with SSI. And so I understand about mental illness. I got it in my family. A lot of families do. But unfortunately, the system that is running things and holds us down, they tend to absolutely not want to recognize it. And that's intentional, because if they did recognize it and do something about it, then it wouldn't keep them in business, and they wouldn't be able to expand bigger prisons and bigger police forces and militarize the police and all that. And then they just use the excuse of us hurting one another out of frustration, confusion, anger, rage, mental illness as a reason why they have the right to kill us and expand a prison industrial complex system. So public housing too in itself does have that feeling. They do police us and don't allow us to live our life independently. They're all up in your business and your bank finances. Anything you do, you have to report it to them. It's kind of like living in jail. So, you know, I just want to put that out there to folks. That's what a lot of our communities deal with. Peace.